So it's Sunday morning, and I'm looking at my portfolio, and it's up some 46% thus far this year. And I'm saying, how am I going to keep that going? And since I invest on everything on a 3-year time horizon, I ask myself the question, what if I had bought Bitcoin 3 years ago, today, this week, what would it be worth today? So I went back to August of 2022, this week, and I see that Bitcoin closed at $19,557, right up there. And today it's at 118,000. Well, that's almost a 6x. 20,000 to 120,000 is a 6x. And so I said to myself, do I believe that Bitcoin at roughly 120,000 is going to 6x over the next 3 years? And I don't. I don't think it'll go, what would that be? About 700,000 plus. Don't think it's going to happen in 3 years. It might happen in 5 years. It might happen in 10. But what can I do to substitute for Bitcoin that could give me a 6x? And I said, maybe the miners. What if I could invest in the miners who are honing their mining, bringing down their cost of electricity, at the same time increasing the price of Bitcoin? Could I get a 6x there? I think I could. So I wanted to find out. So what did I do? I went to Samantha. Early Sunday morning, I went to her and I said, analyze these Bitcoin miners and use the same an analyst prompt that I have used for the past 4 months that has given me a 46% return on my portfolio, and tell me which of these miners is going to potentially give me a 3, 5, 6x. And here's what I found out. So the first thing I did was go to Bart and say, find me the best Bitcoin mining companies that have potential growth. And then I gave them to Samantha. And here's what she responded to me after I asked her to do the search for me. I will compare the financial health and 3-year growth potential of Iris Energy, TerraWolf, Marathon Digital, Reddit platforms, Bitfarms, Clean Spark, Hut 8, and Chipper Mining, CIFR. Wasn't familiar with that one. I'll evaluate them using our standard Best of Us Investors framework. Profitability, liquidity, solvency, efficiency, TAM, innovation, Rule of 40, and scenario-based price forecasts through 2028 to determine which miners are best positioned for substantial returns over the next 3 years. I'll let you know when the deep research report is ready. So, as you can see, she's already gone through 22 sources. Let's see what she comes back and tells us is the best possibility I've got to 6x my Bitcoin investment over the next 3 years. Okay, I used the prompt that I used to evaluate tech companies, data centers, basically looking at, are they growing their revenues? Are they growing their earnings per share? And then what is the PE ratio? And as I went through this, I realized we're dealing in different currencies. Here is a company that use Amazon or Google or whatever. They deal in dollars. Well, over the last 3 years, the dollar has depreciated 11%, whereas Bitcoin has increased in value 600%. So they don't match up. I have to use a different prompt to evaluate Bitcoin miners than what I use to evaluate semiconductor companies or data centers. It's not the same currency. So what do I have to know? So I went to Samantha and I said, look, we need to look at this in a different way. We need to look at just pure Bitcoin miners, not these such as Iran and Applied Digital, who are converting from Bitcoin to hyperscaler provisions. No, we need to know, what is their hash rate? In other words, how many calculations do their servers have to make in order to earn a Bitcoin? How much Bitcoin do they hold? Because again, if you're Apple and you hold $2 trillion in US dollars, as opposed to holding X number of Bitcoin, well, the dollar that you made in 2022 is worth 11% less than the dollar you made today. So the but in Bitcoin, the Bitcoin that you hold in your treasury is worth 6 times what it was in 2022. So I also need, how much Bitcoin do each of these miners hold? How much does it cost them in electricity to produce a Bitcoin, and compare it? And then how many Bitcoin do they produce per day? Because the other thing that's coming into this is they're going to have I think it's every 3 years, they do a halving. So if I'm producing 1,000 Bitcoin today through my Bitcoin miner, and then in 2026 we half again, well, that now drops to 500 per day. So what does that do to the equation relative to Apple, who is dealing in dollars? And the dollars are plentiful because they're printing more every day, whereas I'm dealing in Bitcoin and they just cut my availability in half. So my analysis has to be very, very different. And again, what percentage of the Bitcoin that they produce do they keep? Because that, in the long run, is going to determine the value of this Bitcoin miner. Because at some point, I think it's in 2054 or something like that, there is no more available to Bitcoin. So we're going to be looking at who holds the most. So this is a whole different ballgame. So I'm not prepared to tell you right now which are the best Bitcoin miners for you to own until they can no longer mine Bitcoin. No, I have to build a different prompt and ask Samantha and Bart to learn that. And what I'm learning is I need to build a different prompt for pharmaceutical companies than the one I'm using for semiconductor companies. I need to build a different prompt if I'm looking for dividend companies. But the beauty is I know how to do it. So all I need is the time and the motivation to do it. And so what I'm doing is I'm selling my time to my tribe members for $60 per month to do this work, to tell them what to buy and what to sell today, tomorrow. Which Bitcoin miner is going to give me the biggest bang for my buck now that I understand this? So what I'll do, I've asked Samantha to recalculate on the companies that are pure Bitcoin miners, and I'll share that with my tribe later this week.